much, Sophie, and good morning to everybody. Ministers, honourable members, members of the Cardiac Arrest Survival Foundation, guests, staff and colleagues. It's great to be able to be here with you this morning. As you've heard, sudden cardiac arrest is unquestionably a major health issue for Australia, and I'd like to reinforce some of Don's comments about sudden cardiac arrest is not choosy about its victims. A lot of young people do die of sudden cardiac arrest. When I graduated in the 1970s, survival from this condition outside the hospital setting was extremely rare. We had developed CPR techniques, but not with defibrillators, because we simply hadn't recognised then that early defibrillation is the real key to success. Fortunately, we're now more enlightened. And to follow on from Don and Sophie's comments, the Automated External Defibrillator Deployment Registry, or AEDDR, and its guidelines have been created in response to the knowledge that publicly available AEDs may not be readily available or fit for purpose, or even that users may be familiar with their operation. There's also a very clear unmet need for feedback on the effectiveness of deployed AEDs so that we can drive improvements. If we don't know what our issues and problems are, we can't get better. So what are the guidelines about? You've already been given some overviews, but in essence, they will ensure that the millions of dollars spent by private companies, by governments, state and federal, on providing defibrillators in the workplace and in public locations will not have been wasted. The stated purpose of the guidelines is to ensure that AEDs in Australian workplaces firstly meet standards of safety, reliability, effective capability and ease of use. And secondly, that all associated training is effective, high quality, delivered with sufficient regularity and efficiency so that users in workplaces will be enabled to confidently save lives. I've experienced situations where people are simply not prepared to use AEDs because they're scared of them. And that's an unacceptable situation which we need to remedy. So the key implementation elements of the AEDDR are based on a set of specifications and compliance standards. We know what the principles are. How are these actually going to work? Well, firstly, we need to get the right AEDs. We need to get the characteristics and features of these devices correct so that they're simple, they've got self-testing capability, and they're foolproof when they're operated. Secondly, we need to install and locate them so they can be found. You've heard about situations where people simply cannot find an AED which is very close by. So it's ready, visibility and accessibility. And we've even had situations where we've audited locations where AEDs are positioned and they're not accessible to the disabled. They're simply mounted too high on the wall. So simple things like making sure that everybody can use them is a great way forward. We need to monitor, maintain and train. So if you don't have an automatically monitored defibrillator, you do have to check it daily. You do have to run through the cycles to make sure it's working. If there's a problem, you need to rapidly fix those defects because there's no point in having a defective one that you can't use. And we need to train people annually, first aiders, but also general public. And some businesses have had a lot of success with that. We need to make sure that the emergency response is appropriate and post-incident support is provided. So we need to ensure that ambulances turn up and a fully automated defib will actually, when you pull it off the wall, it will call the ambulance. And we need to make sure that specialist follow-up is appropriate. So emergency room physicians or cardiologists review the cases to see if we could do something better. And then there's record keeping and certification and the other issues which go with the registry. By the time I joined Qantas in 2000, the airline had a very long history of fitting AEDs in its aircraft. It led the world. And you cannot go on an international aircraft and almost any domestic aircraft worldwide without a medical practitioner having access to AEDs. And I've had to use those on several occasions in my career. Qantas subsequently installed AEDs in its major ground facilities when it realised the significance and their value, and we trained all of our staff in its use. The equipment was state-of-the-art, and it had the features that we've been talking about: 24-hour back-to-base monitoring, automatic ambulance call-out, and this is the standard we're aiming for. It's already there in large corporations in Australia. It's there in some public areas, but we need to make sure it's consistent and uniform. And in my view, organisations conforming to these guidelines will demonstrate their commitment to best practice and their responsibility to the Australian community. And ultimately, preventing unnecessary deaths from sudden cardiac arrest is critical for both individuals and society. And these guidelines will go a long way towards achieving this goal, and I would commend them to you. Thank you very much.